Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Larry.
Welcome to Manopod,
A podcast dedicated to men over 50.
brought to you by manopause.com.
Welcome to another Manopause podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is April Beyer. She is the CEO and founder of Level Connections, a revolutionary dating and relationship service that uses proprietary EVT matching technology to achieve better relationship success. And she's been in the matchmaking and relationship industry for more than 20 years and is also currently a dating and relationship coach. You probably have seen her on 2020, on MSNBC, on Good Morning America, on Dr. Phil. She's probably a familiar face to everybody out there. So welcome, April.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We're excited to have you.
So you said something in the intro, Larry, and I'd love to know what it is. EVT. What's EVT, April?
EVT. So when I created Level, in order to be able to source our best introductions, our most accurate introductions, I came up with something called EVT, which stands for Emotional Value Trigger. Because after spending 2 decades interviewing people and watching them in interviews, in order to get their truth, you ask certain questions and you realize that people have an emotional trigger or a response that could be positive or negative to something you ask or something you say or a certain attribute or behavior that you mention. So I could see people leaning in with interest, or I could see people getting scared and holding back. So that's how I was actually in the personal interviews back in the day of doing those. That's how I was kind of tracking what people were looking for. Of course, I was listening to what they were saying they wanted, but I was really looking at behavior. So the EVT actually elicits more of an emotional response to certain questions that we ask in our profiling and our questionnaire.
When you ask those questions, are you doing it live? Are you doing it on phone? Or are they filling out paperwork?
It's within our offline program that they can access once they are coming in as a member. We put them through this sort of virtual process, and it's more of a drop-down kind of questionnaire. It's AI essentially, so it almost feels like we're there asking the questions, and it almost looks like and feels like a grid. So if you've been married before and you've had children, you're going to go this way for a little while. If you didn't, you're going to go here. If you advanced your education or your career, you're going to kind of take little different tracks. So I designed it to feel like there was someone there interviewing. Plus there's video from me and instructing, and there's a little guidance and throughout as well. So I wanted it to be the next best thing to sitting down with me or somebody from my team in person.
Yeah, so these are algorithms basically that take them through a variety of directions. Yes. to.
It sort of feels like it's been called the Myers-Briggs for the heart.
Oh,
so actually, it's an actual educational tool. It's not just for us. I think when people go through it, what we hear a lot is, wow, I didn't know I needed that. I didn't know that much about myself. I had never asked those questions of myself. And when you're a matchmaker and you're looking at static profiles all day, your eyes start to cross, because if people are on dating apps or they're talking to matchmakers, what do? They go very aspirational, very big and wide of, here's all the things I'm looking for and here's my story, when what we're really listening for is certain words, triggers, like what 3 qualities am I looking for my client? And I'm waiting for her to say those things. Mm-hmm. So that's why we do this. It's much more reliable. It's not as reliable as having me in the room, but it's much more reliable than somebody doing it on their own, because we can actually mine for these 10 categories of compatibility. And really what it comes down to is your values, right? Your values across education, family, adventure, whatever those are. It's not our job to tell you what your values are. We're actually creating a profiling system and a platform that allows you to kind of dig it out of yourself. And it actually creates more honesty because if we're not allowing people to, like a dating app, go on and share their story in an aspirational way, we're always going to get the truth, because there might be 10 ways we ask the same question.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So how did you get started in this business?
Back in the covered wagon days, I was working for...
When you were 3.
When I was 3,
yes.
I had worked for a matchmaker who was starting... they were pretty big at the time, but they grew to be much bigger while I was there. And it was a male and female matchmaking company as a higher end type of style business. And I started there. I worked there for about 6 years, was responsible for a lot of relationships and marriages, and made the choice to move on in '03. And then I went into and pioneered an all male driven like business model, meaning the men were the clients and then the women were what we like to call like in our community, in our network. So for me, wanting to change the way the business was done and make it more effective and more fair, to be honest with you, so that the clients were the men. That didn't mean that we didn't care for what the women were looking for. It just those weren't paying members. That makes the matching a lot more fair across the board. So yeah, that was the late '90s. And then I started my company in '03 and I've never looked back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did any of this, I mean, just even getting into the business itself, did any of that grow out of people that you knew that were having a hard time, or that you were not satisfied with the people you were meeting? I mean, or was it just like, hey, that sounds like an interesting job, and then it just blew up?
Yeah, I always say my career found me. I've been an insatiably curious person my entire life. I got kicked out of classes as a little girl for asking why way too many times. And I think this was the business of why. So the woman that was running the agency was a mother-daughter team. When she asked me to come work for her, I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting, but it was just a job. And it wasn't until I got into it and started realizing that this is like psychology. This is really listening to the he said, she said, and it feels like you're putting a puzzle together. So I think it activated that curious side of my brain, and it's problem solving skills. That's really what it is. So it had nothing to do with my own life, even though when I started, I was not single. I was in a relationship. But I was in a relationship with a man that wasn't interested in getting married. And that was many, many years. But I was really good at spotting who should know who. So it had nothing to do with me, but more about, ooh, can I solve a problem for these people? They're doing this. They aren't getting the results they want. I know this person. Let me connect them. Let me guide them and see where that goes. And if you do that enough and you find success, it kind of becomes almost addictive, right? Because you're seeing lives change.
Right.
So I fell into it, and I'm so glad that I did.
So I have a question. It's not on the list. Okay.
Okay.
You're dealing with men as the client, right?
Yes.
That is the paid client, and you're bringing in beautiful women of all different types and sizes and everything else, I'm sure, which is great. But are the men actually looking to get married, or are they just looking to date? What do you find?
Our process works better if people are more intentional, because this is a very intentional way of pursuing your personal life. If somebody is just looking to date, we're not as successful with those people. Now, I say this because whether or not you have your eye on the target of getting married, it actually doesn't end up being that important to us. What is important to us is I want to meet quality people. I can recognize a great match if I see it, so that there's an end game in mind, right? We don't need everybody to be married. We could work with people that are 2 years out of their divorce, and we know they're not going to turn around and get married again. And that doesn't matter to us. What matters to us is, does he have good character? Is he somebody that actually wants a monogamous relationship at some point? Because no one can guarantee that. There's a lot of men that come in that say, I want to be married, and it takes the year or more. So it just kind of depends on the overall intention, but also learning that you can enjoy your dating life without saying I have to be married within a certain amount of time, because no matchmaker can guarantee that. I mean, we have an 89% success rate, and all of the men that have gotten married through me have met their wives within maybe 4 or 5 introductions from us. So that shows me that when people have that level of readiness, we're really good at what we do. But there's also that other, part of that percentage that haven't been married through us, but maybe it's because they didn't want to be, So it's not the marriage, it's about the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes,
That's what matters
definitely.
to me the most. I'm actually not tied to any idea of people getting married. I want people to be happy. I want people to date the right people. I want people to not waste their time dating the wrong people, especially if somebody comes to me after a divorce. I already know that, what he's been through, and I want to be very careful and cautious with him so that he doesn't make an additional, mistake because he's covering up loneliness or
Right.
right, try to date too many people at the same time. So it
Mhm.
just depends on the client.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Now,
Mhm.
what who comes to you with the better toolkit,
Are
the men or the women?
you going to make me say that?
Yes.
Well, okay. Women think they come to me with the better toolkit. Um, I actually think men do, and I'm not sure if my view is skewed because I'm already working with men that are educated, established, walking toward relationship instead of running from it. So I might have a different perspective. Men, of course, make their mistakes. Usually they're quite fixable. But women, I believe, are not coming with the best toolbox right now in a way that maybe they were 15 years ago. And I blame the dating apps. I blame the dating apps for changing values and changing the way people interact and date. And what's happening is we just have a lot of chaos and confusion right now. That I tend to have to kind of we call it clean up on aisle 9 on Monday mornings when we get feedback. That I have to do a lot of that, but certainly everybody needs help. Men I can be way more direct with, right? With where they're heading off course.
Right.
It's much more simplified, and they listen. If they listen, we're going to be successful.
Mhm.
But I think women are very confused. I think women, as a coach, I coach women as well, and I'm hearing a lot of women not really having their own toolbox. In fact, I'm teaching a course right now that is a relationship readiness toolbox, like how to get ready for love. And most of it's about self-confidence, knowing your own romantic value, knowing your value so that you can be the driver of the bus so that you're not blown in the wind every time somebody ghosts you or retreats or doesn't
Right.
call you back, right? So that's something I see consistently. But everybody needs a hand as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. And with the recent COVID virus, how's it going with the dating? Has that slowed people down, or are they just spending extra time away from each other? That distancing.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Well, dating is slower, but connecting is not. I would say the first 2 to 3 weeks of COVID, right around like mid late March when we started locking down and quarantining, everybody took a little bit of a break. But it was about 3 weeks after that that my phone just started ringing from women and men. I've never seen anything like it,
Wow.
except for 9/11. I was matchmaking on 9/11, and it was one of our busiest months
Really?
because people, yes. So what's happening is everybody started reaching out to say, I'm lonely in a way
Right.
that they hadn't before because they
Right.
had their friends, they had all of their crutches, they had their activities they were doing. And suddenly, even if they're still working, they're working from home, they're not seeing friends. And I think it's been a wonderful time for people to take stock and reevaluate. But talk about a lot of confusion because
Wow.
usually you text somebody, you get out on a date.
Hmm.
And with COVID, you can't do that.
So
Now,
you're Zoom dating.
so people are Zoom dating, but
Right.
they don't
Right.
know how to create connection via Zoom, whether it be intellectual, emotional, physical. There's ways to do it. But if somebody isn't giving them sort of guidelines, we call it the cliff. People are very excited to connect. Dating app usage is up, by the way, right now. People are all over their dating apps.
Hmm.
But what's happening is they're not able to sustain, grow, and maintain any of these new connections because no one taught them how to do this. This is actually very exhausting for most people.
Yeah.
And if people are on Zoom all day for work, they're not going to want to
Right.
go out on a date on Friday night, and they can't date multiple people this way,
Right.
right?
Well, they could date in, 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. They could have 4 dates.
They could do like Brady Bunch dating.
That's right. Right. But I would think that it would be a more intellectual conversation. They could get to know each other a lot better. And then when they finally to meet physically, it could be even better. I would think.
I
Or worse.
100%
It might be worse.
I
It could
100%
be
agree,
worse.
guys. Yes, because I wrote an article called "The Future of Dating," and I had this epiphany that I think dating is going to get a lot better because we are going to take that time, like you said, like
Mhm.
developing that intellectual, emotional connection, and then meeting in person. If everybody could just let go of their attachment to the outcome and not worry if there was going to be that physical, sexual, chemical spark when they met in person, people
Right.
could literally be enjoying themselves right now during COVID, during quarantine, making these connections and not
Right.
worrying about what's going to happen later. And I think they're going to be building better relationships as a result of
I
this. So
totally agree.
I see the silver lining. If I
Mhm.
could just convince everybody of this, we'd all be better off.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into this. We're going to start picking your brain and maybe getting some examples and, maybe throw Mike out there and say, what if he was single? How would we do this? So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Larry and Mike here to tell you about a great product that's saving relationships across the country.
The company is called Manscaped, and their lawnmower is the grooming system for those private areas that look like a briar patch.
That's right. The pubes, the ball sack, the armpits, even the chest. Way too much wiry, nasty hair. You know it, and sadly, she knows it.
The lawnmower has ceramic blades that safely remove hair anywhere. It's waterproof and rechargeable.
Don't let your privates look like you sat on a deli slicer.
Get yours at manopause.com and get 20% off with Manopause20. The code is Manopause20. The whole family will thank us. You ready, Larry?
I'm ready. Let's do it. And we're back.
Yeah. Oh, I get to ask a question. I kind of like to ask this question only because where Larry is totally into it and he's just teaching me about manscaping, right?
Literally, physically teaching.
Teaching. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
teaching. You're holding the razor, okay? Um, and our sponsor that we just left for commercial for is called Manscaped. And so it's kind of interesting. They said their demographic was between 18 and 34. But to be honest with them and with ourselves, we're all discovering it in our 50s and 60s of manscaping, right? It's cleaning yourself up and making yourself, you know what?
Yes.
What? What'd you say?
Agree.
Yeah. Oh, presentable. There, I thought you said something with an F, but you didn't. Okay. So, so April, what do you recommend to your men? What do you say to them? Does the topic of manscaping even come up?
It actually doesn't come up, but I have to say, I work with such an amazing group of people. They're really coming to us with the knowledge of, I know what to wear, right? I know what restaurant to take her to. What's missing is the deeper dive stuff, right? They're overlooking some things that are more internal. But certainly, if there's any, I had a client that for years had really long hair, and he was attached to that hair, and good looking guy. And I said to him, "Look, you're really limited. You need to like shave that beard. You need to clean up that hair. It's too long. You're over 50. Let's do something about it." And he was
Talking about me.
he was so no, he was longer than my hair.
Oh,
And he
okay.
was so attached to his hair. And I said, look, we could increase the ROI on the women if you cut your hair by at least 75%. And so
Wow.
about a month later, he sent me a picture of his ponytail cut off. It was just sitting on a table. And he went to one of the top hairdressers in town. He gave him a rock star haircut. He looked gorgeous. Did all the manscaping, and now he's in a amazing relationship with the woman I introduced him to. They're such a hot, beautiful couple. So yes, it worked for him just to get a little bit of advice. He also upped his style. So occasionally things like that, yes, I do have to step in, but I usually have a Rolodex of people that I say, okay, you're going to go to this person for your style. You're going to go to this person for your manscaping. You're going to go to this person for, your haircut. I don't do it myself. by the way, Mike. Just wanted to let you
Okay.
know. Okay.
Well, I wasn't even going to ask that question. Oh my God. Thanks for taking that.
I didn't mean the manscaping. I meant the styling.
Oh, okay. God, my mind is in the gutter.
I
Really?
know. I've been
Thanks
noticing
a lot,
that.
buddy. Thank you.
So, so here's the thing. I know a lot of women who have been trying to use the other more common dating services.
Mhm.
And the most consistent complaint that I've heard is that there's almost a misrepresentation of who you're meeting, in the sense that there doesn't seem to be a lot of screening in terms of what men in particular are putting on the site in terms of their picture, their actual life status, maybe even their likes and dislikes, right? And so there's so much disappointment when the women go out on dates and meet these guys. They don't look the way they looked in the picture. They actually don't work as the CEO of Bank of America. They're actually, they work at the pizza place down the street, right? So, and it really sours them on that whole dating experience. Where, I mean, I've heard a lot of them just say, you know what, forget it. So, does your algorithm and all that? Do you make sure that everybody on both sides is being totally honest about who they are as an individual?
Yes, everybody has to go through an application process, and with that, they need to send us their LinkedIn, their social accounts. So we do, before we even let anybody in or even have an inquiry call, we've already done a little bit of a check. Then we have everybody go through our questionnaire. Then we actually do a self-guided interview. So that's a way for us to kind of see that person privately on camera to make sure that, yes, that person is who they say they are. So we do a lot of checking on things to make it safer for people. I think for men, their biggest complaint is she showed up looking nothing like her images. And for women, it's, I don't trust that he is who he says he is.
Yeah, right.
And so, men, I think, seek adventure and women seek security. And for women, it's, I can't trust that he, like you said, Larry, I can't trust that he has that job. I can't trust where he works. There is no one vetting that. And a lot of dating apps now call themselves matchmaking services. Unless someone is matching you, it is not a matchmaking service. There is no vetting process. Our company is really a vetting and qualifying company more than a matchmaking company, because the match happens between two people, right?
Right. Right.
We're just trying to get as much out of the way as possible so that everybody can feel safe and confident to go out on that date, knowing that the person in that photo is exactly the person they're going to meet that night. But you're right, it's created so much distrust that everybody lies about their age. They've got, women have doctored photos on there.
Men do. Men do too.
Men
And then
too.
you
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
They'll
wild,
put
wild
one
west.
from 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and then they're like 40 pounds heavier with less hair, and it's like,
Yes.
well,
And then
they weren't going to notice. I mean,
well, a lot of people say when they get to that date, they'll say, well, now that we're here, I'm going to tell you I'm actually 10 years older than what I said.
Yeah.
Or, wow, you look nothing like that photo. And a lot of people get angry from both sides, and they say, well, I wanted you to know me. Well, the knowing you is knowing that you lie. So right out of the gate, it's non-starter.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to be found out. So no one gets by us without being fully vetted and qualified. We're not doing background checks, but that's not what people are complaining about. That's not the issues.
Mhm.
Level was designed to solve the issues that dating apps have caused and to minimize the cost, the financial cost of high-end, high-profile matchmaking, which is what I've done for 20 years. Somebody had to come up with something that was a bridge right in that middle, and we could only do that with technology, but not leaning on technology, just incorporating tech into what we do. Because dating apps, they're not created by people who want to get people married, right? They're actually created to keep you in the system, to give you a consistent reward for any action you're taking, whether it's swiping left or swiping right. So I get it. And I see, women used to, back in the day when I started, I could call somebody, no photo, no profile, and just say, Mary, I want you to meet John. And I would get 98 to 99% of those women saying yes, a 98% approval rate. Now it's like 78%. It's lower because there is so much distrust and everybody's exhausted and depleted from dating apps. and they're free, but you can't go up to a bartender and say, make this drink stronger without paying for a double. So I don't know why people expect something that is free,
Yes.
Or close to free to be the thing that's going to find them their life partner. I think everybody's got to get a little bit of a reality check.
Mm-hmm.
So, our site is really oriented towards primarily men over 50. There's a lot of women that come to our site too to figure out what the hell's wrong with the men over 50. But since we're catering to that group, we're probably going to have a reasonable number of men who are either widowed or divorced, or they may be lifelong bachelors, right? And so it gets a little scarier out there, I would imagine, for them as they're dating. You have some guys that want 20-year-olds, and then you have other guys that are actually looking for a contemporary person that they can share their life with. But do you find that, because I know you deal with older clients as well, do you find that their criteria for who they want to meet is different now than maybe the criteria of men who are in their late 30s, early 40s? Are looks more important to the older guys? Are good personality? Is there a difference between those age groups?
100%, because when a guy is just starting out in his 30s and he's looking for his first marriage, he's looking for the mother of his children. So the list is a lot longer. Men who are over 50 who come to us are easier to match. And by the way, most of my clients are north of 50. I love it when a guy comes to me with substantial relationship history, because usually what he's asking for is a direct reflection of what didn't work in his marriage. Or if he's widowed and it was a positive, beautiful marriage, what I go for is, what did we love about Kathy? What do we want more of? What do we want to see again? And when you met Kathy, you were in your 20s. You're now 55. How can we honor Kathy and also build on new criteria that you didn't want or need at 25 because you guys were building a family? Right. So it's easier when somebody isn't coming to me with like, it's my first decision, I want it to be my last decision. This guy's already been around the block. And I think, men who are over 50 who've been married don't need to really create new dating skills as much as they need to understand that they already have relationship skills from their career, from raising their kids, from being their wife. Regardless of what happened in that marriage, there are really good relationship skills there to use. So I feel like the list gets shorter and more important after 50. Things like, I just want her to be positive, April. I just want her to be happy. Yeah. If she shows gratitude, that's going to really draw me in. So words like that come up: nurturing, positive, happy. She takes care of her body. She takes care of her mind, body, and spirit, right? They're asking for a lot, but it's, to me, the things that I think everybody should be asking for that some of the younger guys overlook. Then lo and behold, 15 years later, they're calling me, splitting up their income and watching their kids every other weekend. Mm-hmm. After a divorce, saying, oops, I forgot to ask for those other attributes because I was so looking for the picture, right? The hot girl that I had all these things in connection with, right? We both had to play tennis. We both have to ski. Well, we all know that in a relationship, that actually doesn't matter. What matters is, do you have the same values?
Right.
Are you living like a parallel life? And I understand when you're starting out for your first family, you're going to look for different things. So, I mean, if I could just have a business of men in their late 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even 70s, I'd be a lot even more successful with the marriages, right? Because I love that. I'm working with a gentleman that has come from a 25-year beautiful marriage, and he lost his wife. And he's a great guy to match because of that, because he has a positive sense memory to relationship.
That's great. Do you ever get the men that, let's say that 70-year-old comes to you and says, I was married for 50 years, 40 years, I'm kind of wanting to go back to my youth and like to date a 30-year-old. What do you say to that guy?
I say, there's the door.
Seriously? So you would never match anybody like that?
No, because I've been around for so long, I've also watched the evolution of women. So women have, women in their 20s and they're crushing it in their careers. They have put off babies and family to develop themselves, their careers, their circle of friends. they feel so strong and independent. There's not a lot of women that I'm going to get that are going to be 30, 35 that are going to go 55, 60. They're just not. They have no need to, because they're not looking for the security in the same way that maybe was going on 20, 30 years ago. So
Right.
men have to get wise. And I would say the most successful relationships, the ones that moved the fastest, the people that actually got everything that they wanted and needed, have dated within 5 to 7 years of their age. Those are the ones that work,
Yeah,
right?
we believe you,
Well,
but
yeah.
you see these men dating much younger women, and we're confused by that, surprised. Is it money for the women? Is it sex for the men? Is it both? I mean, what is that all about? Because we don't get it.
Usually if it's a much, much younger woman and it's an older guy, it's not just the money. It's the security, it's the direction. I usually can tie it directly to not having, being dealt the great dad card. Usually if you have a nice dad, you feel like, hey, I got one. I don't need to date another one. Right?
That's
So,
interesting. Yeah.
and a lot of those women, it's not so much the money, it's just they haven't really found their airport. They haven't really found their lives yet. So for them to be with somebody older and more experienced who's going to take care of everything, it's a way of saying, I don't have to make my own life. I don't have to do my own career. So as a man, I would really watch out for that. But I remember having a lot of men say, if I could have, April, your wisdom, your personality in a woman 15, 20 years younger, I go, well, good luck with that, because these wrinkles came with time,
Right.
like
Right.
this advice and counsel that I'm giving you, I didn't maybe have it. I was always good at my job in my 20s, but I wasn't April in my 20s. I wasn't this.
Right.
So, and by the way, if men say, I defy my age, I want a younger woman because I ski and I do all these things and I listen to rock, that's assuming that women also don't defy their age. There's a lot of women, by the way, women over 45 work harder on their bodies and their fitness and their health than women in their 20s and 30s, because we have to.
That's right.
Right? So I think guys are missing the boat by not being open on age, because I meet a lot of really gorgeous women that I'm just like, wow, like so happy to know, because of the way they take care of their health and their beauty and their mind. They've got their own careers and they have this independence. They're a better match. And I think, by the way, I think women also, some get very sexy after 50.
Oh, no,
Totally.
not about
Right?
it. Our wives are, right, Mike?
That's
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Well, I've been married almost 36 years in October, and Larry, you're going on 37, right?
But we've been together for 42.
Wow, that's a long time. So you guys didn't even need to experience any of the dating apps out there. You got to sail right by that.
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Larry and Mike here to tell you about a great product that's saving relationships across the country.
The company is called Manscaped, and their lawnmower is the grooming system for those private areas that look like a briar patch.
That's right.
Get yours at manopause.com and get 20% off with Manopause20. The code is Manopause20. The whole family will thank us. You ready, Larry?
I'm ready. Let's do it. Looking from the other side now, I also know some guys that have been dating, through the conventional apps out there. And one of their complaints is there's a lot of hot messes out there. There's a lot of women that, I look at their picture and they're like, damn, I like the way she looks. Oh, she does this great. And they meet them and it's just like, me, and oh my God, I don't know, should I do this? They're like totally all over the place, and that is a turnoff, no matter how good looking a woman might be. What, in your experience, and now that that you've been doing a lot of coaching and you're having these 12-week seminars for women and all that, are you finding that maybe they're a little less mentally organized when it comes to relationships than men at this age, or is it just different?
Well, part of the reason, if women are suffering from a higher level of insecurity, it didn't just happen on its own. It happened from the disappointment of years of dealing with men who didn't have their act together.
Yeah.
Right? Who maybe got on an app because they were going through a divorce and their buddies or their friends said, hey, Mike, you should get on a dating app, see what's out there. There's this assumption that if you're on a dating app, you're ready, right? And that you're going to care for people in a kind way. And it's not so. So I don't want to blame anybody rather than say collectively everybody's messing with each other's hearts. That's what's really happening.
Right.
But I think men do. I think they overlook that hot mess because she's hot, and then they get into it, right?
Deal with the mess later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll deal with that later. But she's really, really pretty.
Right.
I have actually, when I was doing, and I still do VIP matching, but I have actually gone to clients and said, I've got this woman and I've got this woman. She's your look. And this woman is just as beautiful, different look, but much better for you in the long run. Here's somebody who is a hot mess because I interviewed her, but she's your type. What do you want to do? And he took the hot mess.
There you go. That's a guy.
And they've been married for 20
No, they
years.
did not get married. They did not get married.
But he had fun probably for the first 2 weeks.
Yes,
Right.
until he was pulling his hair out, right?
Right. Exactly.
So, you can lead a horse to water.
Right.
That's why, when we work with people, we want people to come to us and say, okay, you guys are the experts. Clearly, whatever I'm doing hasn't worked. So I tend to listen to what people say. I'm also watching them. I'm making decisions for them. We don't want anybody coming to us and saying, here's what I want. We want people saying, here's who I am.
Yeah.
Help me to find the person that's the fit for that. That's our philosophy because it's easier, it's faster. We get our goals met sooner, and we're all in this together, right? We want what our clients want. We don't want to hold them back from happiness. But yeah, I think women are, what I see most often right now is the fear. Women have given up their power. April, what does it mean when he doesn't call? Or I asked for a relationship and he didn't call me back. I guess I'll never be vulnerable again. That vulnerable word comes up a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And my response is usually, just because you put it out there and you didn't get the answer that you wanted doesn't mean that you were wrong for the ask. It's simply the answer.
So now that's an old problem. I mean, it goes back, you can watch movies from the 50s. And, there's even songs about, will he call me in the morning? I mean, that's been going on for years. And so it seems to be something that's in that extra X chromosome that women have this concern after they've had a date or after something that the guy's not going to call. And it's probably based on the fact that because there's not an extra X chromosome there, he forgets to call or doesn't call or whatever. But the point is that's an old story about women being insecure after they've had what they consider to be a really wonderful time. Why didn't he call me? What did I do wrong? What doesn't he like, right? I mean,
and men too, it's most people get it wrong. So after a date, they'll call in, they give us their feedback. So we even have a feedback loop that consistently updates based on feedback. So it's an iterative process. But most people are wrong when they say, oh, I guess I said this, so therefore that's why I'm not getting a second date. It always comes down to there just wasn't chemistry.
Yeah,
right? It's always just chemistry, which you have about 50% responsibility for. You can actually create chemistry on the date. You can't make someone attracted to you, but you can definitely improve upon that or actually make it worse.
Right.
So I teach that, but I also teach people how to be more instinctual and intuitive and connect, because to me, a date is just that. It's just an opportunity to learn, to grow, to learn about a new human being, to connect. It's not a date to see if this is the person of your dreams, which then makes people behave in a really disingenuous, inauthentic way.
Right.
And it's not fun, right? Dating is not fun. When I was single and dating, and I didn't get married until I was 40, I had a blast dating.
Right.
Because
My
I
wife did
love,
the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, it was fun because I was meeting people, and if a guy didn't call me back again, I just assumed, I guess I'm not his cup of tea. But I don't think a lot of people have that kind of mentality, and it's hard for people, and they can actually get really just devastated in their dating life. I have women who I'm coaching right now who are actually petrified to get out there and date.
So,
and these are women that are highly accomplished in their life in every single way.
Well, and the thing is we had mentioned, and you talked about that you have these coaching sessions that are 12-week courses, and there's sort of 5 tools that you are looking to have them build for themselves. And without, going into super detail, because we want people to take your course, what are the 5 essential ingredients you think that both a man and a woman need to have the equipment they need to have a successful date and ultimately a successful relationship?
Well, first I start with self-awareness, and that begins with confidence. Like if you don't know why you're confident, if you're basing your confidence on anything that can be stripped away, if you're one pandemic away from losing your confidence, that means you don't know what your core confidence is. Meaning, if everything is taken out of your bank account or you lose your job, your core confidence remains, right? So that has to be established. What makes you unique? Why are you you? And it's usually who we were as young children. We're just still that same person. We're just older and wiser. There's romantic value, understanding why would somebody need me as opposed to Jane, Barbara, Cynthia? Where's my romantic value, and how does a man feel his romantic value with me? Women are constantly saying, here's what I need, but we have to also understand it's also give and receive. Like, what do I need, and what do I give? That you're not a match for everybody. And there's also values. A lot of people are not dating through their values, and I don't mean to be Pollyanna, but values are important. And mine guide my life. They guide my business. I know what they are. And also people need to lose their list and lose what they say as far as their type goes and be more open-minded. So I always say, let go of the grip and open your hands, because this just stops people. They have a story, right? And they go out with this intention of, I'm going to go out and qualify people and see if they're right for me. Instead of saying, I'm just going to enjoy this process and this journey. I'm going to meet some fabulous people. And one is going to be somebody that's pretty exceptional, and never stopping until there's equal interest, and not turning on yourself every time somebody ghosts you or doesn't call back. And by the way, most of that is overwhelm. It's not because people are all of a sudden in 2020 flaky. It's just it's like a super highway of people that people forget. They're inundated with messages. And it just kind of like you get down the list and suddenly it's Thursday and they're like, there's no point. There's 20 other people waiting in the wings. It's simply overwhelm. I don't think people have actually fundamentally changed.
The dating apps are overwhelming. You're right. They make people anxious. If they didn't call, they're sitting by the phone, they're waiting. He didn't swipe, you didn't accept my swipe, or whatever you call it. It's insane, and it's that instant gratification that even as older men now, we feel that instant gratification. We want it right now. We got to have it. Like our kids, they want it, and if you don't give it to them right then and there, they have a tantrum. Well, we kind of do the same thing. We got to slow the roll. And I think with this COVID and everything, and kind of staying at home and getting to know yourself a little bit better is going to help people a lot, because I personally have remained much calmer during this than I have ever been in my life. As you know, I'm just anxious and I'm ready to go, full of energy and always go, go, go. And I have taken a calm pill, it's like I've calmed way down. And I think it's going to be much better for men and women when they get to meet each other after this. I think you're going to have your business is going to go through the roof as it has been, but I mean it's really going to go through the roof because people are going to listen, they're going to be calm, they're going to be kind, they're going to be compassionate. They're going to go through all of that because this has calmed people down.
We hope.
We hope. And I agree.
Well,
I agree, Mike. Yeah. I do agree. And I think it's also, this is making, when I say take stock and reevaluate, this is making women as well think in terms of, what, I'm going to give that guy a chance. So the playing field has been leveled. We're all having a shared experience. So you actually don't have to invent what you have in common. And first things first is what I tell all people is, regardless of what is going on in that person's life, we're having this shared experience. Begin with compassion. Just say, how are you in all of this? How are your kids, right? Just begin there and create those connections. And I do think that, what I find is a lot of guys that come to us, they're coming to us and wanting the same kind of deal flow as the dating app. And we can't possibly do that because even though we're tech, we still have agents that are kind of guiding it and making decisions, like human support plus tech. And we can't replicate that kind of pace. But that's the thing that's tripping people up and making people so miserable because they make such fast decisions. And now we realize, okay, people are not disposable. I should give that person a second look. And I think we're going to see a lot more relationships blooming as we get closer to 2021. I'm sure of it.
And I think one of the questions you should put on your list, if it's not on there already, is if a global pandemic ever happens again, who would you rather be in the house with for the next 2 or 3 or 4 months? Somebody that's gorgeous and a hot mess, or somebody that has a sense of humor and has compassion and you can play games with and have fun with and have a conversation with? That's an easy answer, isn't it?
Easy. And, at the beginning of COVID, everybody said, oh, there's going to be a lot of coronavirus babies. And I said, no, there's going to be a lot of coronavirus divorce.
Yes.
And all of the divorce attorneys that I know are very busy right now.
Yep.
Because what happened was a lot of people finally stopped long enough to go, wait a minute, who are you? Who am I? Right. And we're not a good match. That's happening right now as we speak. I'm actually not out to get everybody married. I'm actually really, my focus is lowering the divorce rate in this country. If people just took a little bit longer to make these decisions, we wouldn't have to be worrying about the aftermath and the absolute cost of divorce, both emotionally and financially.
Right.
Right? You guys are lucky. You've been married a long time, so lucky you.
I've always asked people, if similar to what Mike said, I asked my daughters the same thing when they were getting married. If you were trapped on an island for 5 years or 10 years or whatever, who's the one person that you would want to be trapped with? And if it's not your spouse, there's a problem, because that should be the number one person that you would want to be isolated with, no matter what, right? So, I think that kind of stuff's important. But the other thing with divorce, and I don't know if you address this in your seminar, is one of the things that's always bothered me, because I've seen people get divorced after a relatively short period of time, and I think part of the blame is our culture in movies and books and things like that. Almost every rom-com or romantic movie or whatever ends on the high note, right? It ends when it's magic and it's love and it's lust and there's no problems and there's no kids and there's no bills, and right, and it's happy, and that's how it is in the beginning of a relationship. But then life hits you in the face, and a lot of people just think, well, I didn't bargain for this. I want that back, and that doesn't come back. And so I don't know if you incorporate that into the expectations of people. And I think maybe, like you said, men or women who have been in a long marriage and lost their spouse, they'll understand that. But somebody who has been divorced twice may be suffering from that.
Absolutely. Well, there are some women that are in my group right now that haven't made a decision in, more than a decade. And their biggest fear is, well, I don't want to settle. My response is, well, I don't think we have to worry about that, because you're not even in the game, right? You're not even participating.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of it. And you're 100% correct. It's a tricky thing. The longer people stay kind of single, right? But I think if you could see somebody through 4 seasons, you're going to see sort of the daily life of someone, right? I was actually writing up a show once about that. Like, The Bachelor is all fantasy, right? It's fantasy. We had a client engagement this month, actually just 2 weekends ago, and he had to do the proposal at home, and we figured it out. We planned the proposal, and I said, how sweet is that? Because this is actually how it should be. It should be this kind of intimacy. A woman once was dating a client of mine who lived out of state, and she went to go visit him, and she called me complaining and saying, I got here, we had to go get the rental car, then he wanted to go to Costco, then we had to pick up the kids, And I said, well, what did you want? And she said, well, I wanted, the nice dinner and the flowers. And I said, you're getting real life.
Yes.
Right.
You are so lucky that you're getting a bird's eye view into this guy's day-to-day life. You
Yep.
will be going to Costco. You will be picking up the kids. The car will break down.
Yep.
Consider this a gift that you're getting this in advance so that you can make the best decision. So I say, women, stop this idea of I got to be courted for 6 weeks and get into the reality and the honesty as quickly as possible so that you know what you're in for.
I told both my daughters before they got married. I not just only told them, but I made them live with their fiancés for 6 months. Because I said, this dating thing and going your separate ways and stuff, you don't know who that person is. You don't know if his underwear is hanging on the lamp. You don't know what's going on, right? You need to live with him day in, day out, see what he's like in the morning, see what he's like.
Just to wash his hands after going to the bathroom.
Exactly. I mean, all those things you need to find out and make sure that you can live with that. Because if you can't, you want to figure that out now before you do get married and then divorced.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
By the way, Larry, back on your island thing, when I asked my wife,
I would have you. I'm just saying.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I asked my wife that question. She said George Clooney. I said, Heidi Klum, we're done. It's good. So,
all right. So let me ask you a final question here.
Yes.
You got a guy, one of our guys over 50, and he sees this podcast and he's like, I think this is for me. What's his first step? How does he get into the system?
He just goes to levelconnections.com and just submits an inquiry, and we'll hop on the phone and talk with him and see if this is the right fit for all of us. If it is, then we move him through our profiling process and set him up with an interview with an agent to kind of do a little meet and greet. And then he has an agent basically curating these dates for him throughout the process. So we're there for feedback and support and guidance throughout the entire process. But yeah, first things first is just inquire and hop on the phone with us and let us learn a little bit more about you.
That's levelconnections.com.
Yes.
And then you also offer the private coaching. Is that only for women or is that for men as well?
My private coaching is for both. I have a lot of women in my private coaching programs, but I also have a couple of men as well. So all of that is available if they just go to aprilbeyer.com.
aprilbeyer.com. All right. Well, we're gonna have to talk a lot more about.
Oh yeah,
it's fascinating.
I have a million questions, but I don't want to keep you too long.
No, I love it. I'd love to come back.
We're gonna wrap this up, and thank you so much. This has been really great, and I think our community of men is going to be really enlightened. By the way, guys, if you're married, she's not going to help you. So you have to be either divorced or widowed or single to use her services. So thanks so much for joining us, April, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate both of you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Bye, guys.